Okay, we are going to start the meeting. Welcome everybody to the March 10th, 2025 regular city council meeting. I'd like to ask our city clerk to please call the roll.
Councillor Ring.
Here.
Councillor McLaughlin.
Present.
Councillor Runyon is absent. Councillor Randall.
Present.
Councillor Richardson.
Present.
Mayor Mays.
Present. Item 3 is the Pledge of Allegiance. Now, today happens to be a special day. It's Tim McLaughlin's birthday. And I'm going to allow him to sing himself happy birthday, or he can lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. What is your pleasure, Councilor?
Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay, please do.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And how old are you today,
I'm
Councilor?
62 years old.
That's funny.
Again,
Okay, item 4, approval of the agenda. We have a supplemental agenda on your dais here for the executive session. So it looks like we have 2 items for executive session. So I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Move to approve the agenda as amended.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor, please say aye.
aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Number 5, audience participation. Do we have anybody? No? Okay. No one has signed up. Item 6 is city manager's report. Mr. Cleaves.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple items. We have a couple public works projects in progress, as you've seen by the numerous press releases that have gone out. This is the 6th Street widening project and the 12th Street sidewalk and storm extension. The Public Works Department is also diligently working on the 10th Street Safe Routes to School project, which will the bids will come in next week, and we'll be bringing that back to you for award, and we'll be working on that over the summer break. I also appeared on KODL last Friday, and next week I'll be attending an OCCMA, an Oregon City County Managers Association conference, the Northwest Regional Conference, I believe in Vancouver. And that's my report.
Thank you. Item 7 is city council reports. We'll start on my right with the birthday boy.
Well, last week I attended a Oregon Ethics Commission workshop on meetings, completed that, and I'm now certified. Other than that, airport commission meeting, and that's about it for this last 2 weeks.
Councilor Ring.
I was absent at the last meeting, so my report's going to go back a little bit. Met with our city manager on Friday, February 12th, to go over some additional Q&A. Tuesday, February 18th, I had joined the mayor on KOEDL. Wednesday, February 12th, I was at the open house for the Federal Street Plaza, and we have had a urban renewal meeting since then as well.
Thank you. Councilor Randall.
No report, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Councilor Richardson.
No report tonight.
As far as I go, I was on KACI, did an interview with Mark Bailey on the 25th, community outreach team on that same day, Federal Street Plaza meeting on the 26th. I gave a presentation to the Dalles Rotary Club on March the 5th. And some of you may remember when I was first elected mayor back in 2019, I started a program called Saturdays with the Mayor, where I was entertained a program at local restaurants and had a guest, and it drew a pretty good crowd every week. I did about 5 or 6 of those, and then COVID hit, and so I stopped doing Saturdays with the Mayor. Now I think it's pretty good. The situation is ripe. Let's just say that I picked those up again. Be picking up Saturdays with the Mayor again on Saturday, March 29th at the Ezra Cafe at 10 o'clock in the morning. My special guest will be Ben Ring, who is introduce Ben to the community as our newest city council member, and also to celebrate and go over some of the accomplishments of the Beautification and Tree Committee over the past couple of years. And so there will be members of that committee there. We are looking for people to serve on that committee, incidentally. So if anyone who is listening interested, please get a hold of our city clerk. But in the meantime, we're going to have a series of Saturdays with the mayor beginning on March 29th at 10 o'clock at the Ezra Cafe. And with that, we'll go with the consent agenda. Item 8, items of a routine and non-controversial nature are placed on the consent agenda to allow the city council to spend its time and energy on the more important items and issues. Any councilor may request an item be pulled from the consent agenda and be considered separately. Items pulled from the consent agenda would be placed on the agenda at the end of the action items section. Tonight, we have 3 items on the consent agenda. First, the approval of the February 24th City Council meeting minutes. Second is a resolution authorizing a request for grant funding through the State Parks and Recreation Department. And third is a resolution authorizing a request for grant funding assistance through the Oregon Transportation Growth Management Program. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to make a motion, but I have a question for you first, which is, if I have a question on one of these, is it acceptable to ask and discuss and then have a consent agenda, or is it like we must
Well,
pass
it's a
without?
question that can be answered and
Mr. Mayor, yeah, that's absolutely right to Councilor Richardson's question. This is a time for discussion, and typically once the motion is made and seconded, that's a great time to talk about the motion. But yeah, there's no formalization here for Councilor Richardson.
Well, I would move that we adopt the consent agenda, and if seconded, I will ask a question.
okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
It's been moved by Councilor Richardson and seconded by Councilor Randall to approve the consent agenda. Councilor Richardson has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item C, resolution 25013, et cetera, et cetera. My question is, how much money are we asking for?
Mr. Mayor, Dan Spots is joining us from Washington, D.C., and I think he can address that question.
Are we talking about the transportation growth management?
Yes, sir.
Correct.
We will be asking for 200,000 on that one, estimating around a $250,000 project. And I can give you a lot more detail on that if you like, but that's the bottom line.
That's all I was looking for. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion to approve the consent agenda, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Item 9A, consideration of a contract for the Brownfield Assessment Consulting Services. Mr. Spots.
Thank you very much. And I'm sorry that I cannot be there in person for this one. So a little bit of background, we covered a lot of this in the staff report, but right now the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency is being very, very nice to our entire Columbia Gorge community. We, in the past, have received a $600,000 coalition grant that City Manager Cleaves was instrumental in obtaining. This was a coalition among the port, the city, and Wasco County for assessment of various brownfields across Wasco County, particularly in the city of the Dalles. Brownfield is an old industrial site. It's an old commercial site. And these things can be kind of surprises. We've had a lot of old gas stations, for instance, in the Dalles. Those gas stations inevitably had underground tanks. Those tanks have often been forgotten through the years. And as you go about recovering those sites, putting them back into commercial productivity, you need to take care of that problem. So the coalition grant was to assess, that means locate those grants. And there's a 2-step process for that. Phase 1, phase 2 environmental, and I won't go into the details on that one unless you'd like more background on that. That grant wrapped up this past fall. It started out as a 4-year grant and turned into a 5-year, as I recall. Matthew Cleaves can please, manager, correct me on that one if I'm off on that. But we did wrap it up this past fall. We assessed and to a certain extent mitigated a number of sites across the county, many in the city of the Dalles, many more are still out there that have not yet been treated. And so this past year, we applied for and received a $500,000 grant from US EPA to continue that work with a focus in the city. The coalition route of applying for one of these grants was no longer available, so it became a city assessment grant. We have been awarded, we received the contract, and we are under a federal contract as of December. So the phase that we're looking at now is procuring the environmental professional, known as a qualified environmental professional. QEP is the title in the language. That's the person that goes out and does the technical work once sites have been located. My job with the city and city public works and working closely with brokers and property owners is to find the sites, track them down, and then once we have something located, the environmental professional takes over, bringing in things like ground penetrating radar to locate rough idea of where the tanks are. Then you bring in a contractor, a subcontractor, dig down, see what's under there. Also, asbestos in old buildings. So it's a nice partnership with the urban renewal program. Sigmund's building is a case in point where you can go in and assess environmental hazards of that nature. We have at least one pending one that is so new, we didn't even go into the work plan that we submitted to the EPA this past summer. I won't name the building because we don't have a formal application yet, but it involves asbestos tile. And we're working with Oregon DEQ right now to see if we can come up with some state funds to pull those tiles out. Before you can do that, you have to conduct an assessment. So that type of thing, we will, if this contract is awarded, we will proceed with getting that work underway. We had a competitive procurement in keeping with EPA requirements. We had 3 proposers on that one. The proposals were graded by a team, myself, Tyler Stone from Wasco County, and Andrea Kloss from the Port of the Dalles. And we are recommending selection of Stantec. Stantec is the contractor that conducted the previous work, has a great deal of familiarity with the community. Len Farr is the program manager. He's the same person we worked with throughout the coalition grant. Yeah. Len also is working with Mid-Columbia Economic Development District, which has a $1 million assessment grant, very similar, except it's spread over 5 counties. And then finally, another one is going to the school district. That is for a cleanup grant of the old Chenoweth Middle School. A lot of attention on that building now with the idea of turning that into a child care center, affordable child care center, and a disaster relief shelter. So a lot of talking on my part. I'd be happy to entertain questions.
Questions for Mr. Spots? Let the record show that Council Runyon is on Zoom now. Any questions, comments? Council Richardson.
Thanks. And thanks for joining us, Dan. I know you've got lots of other things going on. This is really good news. Anything we can do to clean up the polluted spots in the community is good for, it's for the good of the order. 2 quick questions. One is the brownfield money that we are activating now incentive funding, or, is there some skin in the game the landowner has to put in, or is this pretty much work that we're going to do and
the assessment level
independent of that?
Certainly the assessment level, typically we can take that on through the grant. The expensive part of this goes into the mitigation aspect of it, and then often the landowner will need to contribute toward that cost. Those funds can be fairly scarce, and it's a complicated process. Sometimes we will not be able to help with mitigation whatsoever. You need to have a separation of ownership with these sites, i.e., if the current owner was involved in the contaminants that were distributed at a site, particularly petroleum, say an old fuel depot, that type of thing. Even if it's decades ago, if there's a continuous chain of ownership from the original incident to the current owner, then we cannot assist with mitigation. We can with assessment, but not mitigation. You have to have a break in that chain of ownership. And I know there is one site in the Dalles that we would love to do something with. It's high on our list. We have to figure out how to tackle that one. And we'll be working with DEQ, with the contractor, EPA, to find some mechanism, probably involving the sale of the site ultimately.
Okay. No other questions? I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd move to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Stantec Consulting Services, Inc. for the EPA Brownfield Assessment Consulting Services under contract 24-011 in an amount not to exceed $445,899.
For a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
It's been moved by Counselor Richardson and seconded by Counselor Ring to enter into a contract with Stantec Consulting. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Raise your hand. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you, counselors.
Item 9B is authorization for a SCADA System Engineering Services Contract Amendment. Mr. McCabe.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I guess so. Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. This project is one that Dave had started and been quite involved in, and now I'm just taking over. So back in February of 2024, Dave made a presentation to the council to seek authorization to award the engineering services for the SCADA system upgrade phase 1 project that is out at the Wicks Water Treatment Plant, to authorize award to Jacobs Engineering for the engineering services that would be required for that project. And I believe at that meeting, he had given information to the council that we would be in the future needing to seek additional services for purchasing of materials related for that project, and then also ultimately hiring an electrical engineer, the services from an electrical engineer to install those materials. So this amendment for this contract is actually for the purchase of the materials at this time. We went out to some of the regional suppliers and requested bids for the cost of the materials. Jacobs, who is also doing the engineering for the original contract, they have the ability to also seek the cost of the materials at that same time for the same materials. And because they're a big firm and they do a lot of work, they are a preferred purchaser or preferred customer by a lot of those regional suppliers. And it turns out from a comparison for what we could get the materials for compared to what Jacobs can get it for substantially less price, actually for about $26,990.16 less than what the city could purchase the materials for directly. So the reason for having to come to this city council meeting and give a presentation is the original contract with Jacobs, and the addition of this purchasing of the materials takes it above the 25% that's allowed for a contract amendment to be made without having to come to the council. This actually takes it to 28.5%. So we're coming to authorize or seek authorization to make an amendment to the original contract. The adopted budget for the 2024-2025 budget included $750,000 in Fund 53, the Water Reserve Fund that was allocated specifically for this project. To date, there's only been $205,229.20 that has been spent on the project. In the proposed upcoming 2025 and 2026 budget, there'll be an additional 1.2 million slated for this project so we can take it to completion. The engineering services contract that was awarded to Jacobs was originally for $1,035,691. This proposed contract amendment will add $295,156 to the contract for a total contract price of $1,330,847. So with that, there are adequate funds available in the Water Reserve Fund for this contract amendment at this time. With that, staff is seeking authorization to move to authorize an amendment to the engineering services contract with Jacobs Engineering Group for the purchase of materials and software related to the Dalles SCADA system upgrade Phase 1 project in an amount not to exceed $295,156, providing a total contract price of $1,330,847.
Questions for Mr. McCabe? Looking for a motion?
Mayor Mays, I move to authorize an amendment to the engineering services contract with Jacobs Engineering Group for the purchase of materials and software related to the Dalles SCADA system upgrade Phase 1 project in an amount not to exceed $295,156, providing a total contract price of $1,330,847.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
It's been moved by Councilor McLaughlin and seconded by Councilor Randall to authorize an amendment to the engineering contracts with Jacobs Engineering. Any more discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Raise your hand. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Very much.
Appreciate it.
Item 10A is consideration of a resolution adopting the city's downtown parking action plan. Mr. Chandler.
Good evening, Mayor Mays, councilors, Joshua Chandler, Community Development Department. Next item here on the agenda is consideration of an adoption for the downtown parking study that we've completed this last year. Last conversation, I believe Councilor Ring was out, so we wanted to bring it back to discuss it again. Ultimately, everything is the same as it was presented last time, aside from a new cover photo. Thank you, Councilor Runyon, for the catch on that one last time. I think hopefully this one looks a little bit better. We worked with the Discovery Center to find a pretty cool historic photo downtown that I think captures parking in a nutshell. So that is the only change here. And thank you again for that recommendation. Since everything is pretty much the same, I think we covered some of Councilor Ring's questions last time around about some parking, some consideration of potentially moving different parking lots. And there are some follow-up questions. So I just wanted to, I think, Councilor Ring, you may have some follow-up questions here. I'm joined here with Owen Ron Kelly of Rick Williams Consulting. So hopefully we can answer those questions for you. And I think we'll just jump right into it.
Yeah. Thank you, Josh, and thanks, Owen, for joining tonight. And I really appreciate the opportunity to just have a discussion because I think there's some good things to point out. And I think you guys did a wonderful study last year. And I think we had some really good conversations, productive conversations during the Parking Advisory Committee as well. Like one of the big notes to think about first off, and I think this is fine, but we're going to adjust the ordinance, the municipal ordinance that currently defines our downtown parking area, correct?
So this would be an action. So that would be an action that comes later on, not with this adoption.
Yeah.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. And then I think the other question that I had, and maybe a recommendation, just for clarification, the off-street parking opportunities in PM5, there's a lot of privately owned off-street parking, and I wanted to make sure that it is, I agree with everyone, it's important to consider the entirety of your parking, right? There's a relationship that takes place between both private off-street parking as well as public off-street or even public on-street parking, where it can kind of relieve some of that congestion and whatnot. And you see that, I think that's evident in a couple of places downtown periodically throughout the day. But one of the things that I'm wondering if we can clarify is that what types of agreements would need to be made in order to facilitate some of the shared parking agreements and things like that, so that we don't, have I want to avoid a potential conflict or any sort of misunderstanding between, a private lot owner downtown versus, who can park there. And because there's a number of, since the parking study was done, this is why it's coming up. Since the parking study was completed last year, I've noticed that a lot of the off-street private lots actually have, some of this proper signage that you need to identify it as a private lot for customers only. There's signs, not everybody complies with this, which is, the signage thing is going to be important as well. But there's violators will be towed and whatnot, which is appropriate. But again, if we're going to, in the future, not now, because I don't think that any of us agree that we have a parking problem, right? According to the study. But could we put in a sentence or two that makes a recommendation to what kind of shared parking agreements might look like in the future?
Yeah, and I mean, I think given that comment, I can open it up to Owen to see, if he has some ideas in the different studies that his team has put together, maybe to address that.
Yeah, thank you. This particular strategy in here, I think, is an important thing to include in the fact that it is primarily it's what we would call a peer-to-peer agreement. So a lot of these agreements are happening, outside of the public realm. And so hopefully it's somebody who has some excess capacity within their private facility can, let their neighbor or an adjacent business that's having, access issues and say, hey, you know what, you can park your employees on this lot because we have some extra space. And typically that's how these kind of shared use agreements occur. They're some are informal, some are more formal, where there's actually a lease agreement and money exchanging hands. But in this particular instance, the public sector can play a role of facilitator in this instance. And I'll give you the example of Oregon City. Oregon City does a good job. The city will actually go out and collect data on private lots and determine, capacity and identify some of those lots that have additional capacity that they might use. And that's when the downtown chamber kind of takes over. The city hands over some of this information to the chamber and say, hey, there's a couple of lots here that have some excess capacity. This is an opportunity for you to go out and try to shop these spaces for some additional demand in the downtown because their downtown happens to be constrained. While the Dalles is not at that point right now, I think it's still a great, tool in the quiver of strategies that can be used, and the city can help facilitate some of those arrangements. And that's the way they primarily have happened in the past.
Thank you, Owen. That's actually a really good point of clarification too. I think it's not just the city having a potential shared parking agreement with a private lot owner, but it is private to private. I don't know that immediately jumped out at me. I think even during the parking advisory committee, I think we spoke about it, but that was, so many months ago. But that's awesome. I wonder then, would it be appropriate to further define that? I don't know. I don't know what the rest of the council maybe thinks.
further, could you be a little more specific on what you further define what now?
So I think specifically sharing going forward the private to private partnerships that could take place, right? So essentially, it's still private parking. It would remain private parking. You know, and in some cases, sure, the city as a public entity might enter into some sort of agreement, but I'm wondering if we can make, I'm not sure how to state that so that it's clearer, but
I might just have a suggestion and, so we're all on page 17, looking at PM5. And I'm just kind of extrapolating based on what you stated there. Under mid to long term, the first bullet point says obtain agreements from downtown businesses to participate in assigned stalls to affected employees. And I'm just wondering if it's a relatively small adjustment to say obtain or foster agreements from and between downtown businesses.
yeah,
If that better captures the private to private relationship.
I think that's a great idea.
And I would think that's a minor enough change not to impede forward on this topic tonight.
Absolutely.
Josh, are you and Owen okay with that?
Easy. Yep.
Okay,
Yeah, that sounds good.
great. Good suggestion. Anything else, Counselor?
No, that's it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Any other comments or questions?
It's Runyon, I do.
Counselor Runyon.
As Councilor Ring pointed out again, that, the report all the way through, it talks about a low and moderate situation, not an urgent matter. And I brought it up previously. I would just like to make sure there's some emphasis on the lighting on the public parking lots. As we go into the later months now where the sun will be up later and later, we're pretty good. But by next winter, I don't really want to be guiding people to those parking lots if they're still as dark as they are. So that's one of my big concerns. Talking with the city manager a week or so ago after the meeting, as far as the core area that had some people that were there 3 hours or more, one was 5. If we did put in even signs in that area, it's 3-hour parking and whatnot, it brings up the point, which I don't see discussed in the report, about who's going to go around and chalk tires and do that. Are we talking about another employee right away, or would we just see how it goes? And then the final thing I want to mention is at the community outreach team meeting, I talked a little bit with Lisa Farquharson of the Chamber of Commerce, and mentioned to her the thought I had at our last council meeting that years ago, businesses went out of their way to try to get their employees to park, not on the block that their businesses were on. And even though that might be a short-term thing, I really think that the chambers, Lisa said that she's willing to work with us on that, and that would be good. And Main Street, I'm sure, would have the same kind of reaction. But I think short-term, at least, getting our local businesses to help us out with getting employees to park elsewhere than on the business street is something we really need to push. Whether it needs to be in this report or not, I want it to at least be in the minutes.
Yeah, thank you for that, Councilor Runyon. I think that's it sounds like a messaging campaign that we can pull together, maybe some flyers, take them around to downtown businesses. I think Owen's team, you guys have probably worked, maybe even prepared some of that material. So I think that's an easy ask, and we can, work with the chamber on that as well.
I think it's a great opportunity for messaging. Part of that is good communication using the city website and encouraging, articulating the behavior that you would like to see. And so I think that that's also something that's very, capable, and you can put it out front and agree that reaching out to the chamber and doing that peer-to-peer contact is going to be really effective in that regard. and one other thing I wanted to mention too, and Councilman Runyon's comment about lighting in PM6, assessing public off-street parking safety standards. One of the important pieces of that is definitely lighting for sure. And I absolutely agree that lighting, particularly this time of year and just a little bit before now, could really enhance the use of those facilities with better lighting. People would feel more confident parking there, I believe.
Mayor Mays.
With those 2 points in mind, is this something we want to make sure is included in the report, or is this something that we're just going to direct the staff to take care of with the chamber and with Public Works, for example, to get more lighting? Councilor McLaughlin?
I did take a travel down at night into the back parking lot, and even though there are lights back there, they're street lights and they're of low intensity, and the number of lights are limited, so it doesn't give a good saturation of the parking area. My recommendation would be to increase the number of lights plus increase the number of lumen so it is fully bright on that. That's just one parking lot. We could take a look, but that's a good place to start.
Well, again, I'll ask the question, are these 2 points that Councilor Runyon raised, should they make sure they're in the report, or can the staff just take care of it?
I can speak on it. As far as the neighborhood messaging, business owner messaging, that's probably something staff can just take care of. Regarding the safety of the public lots, currently PM6 is listed as a short-term implementation timeframe, which means it would be something that's happening in the 12 to 24 months. We could move that to a short term, so it's happening in 0 to 12 months. So that would be something that we do act on within this next year.
Does anybody have a problem moving it to the 0 to 12-month category?
No.
Good.
But
Okay.
a merger with the PUD, maybe working in cooperation, maybe they could partake or help fund some of that improvement, plus make recommendations as far as the quality of the light.
Yeah. So, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to add that we have had outreach done with the PUD to improve the lighting, in particular in the alleyways between first and second and third, with the street lights and the poles that they have in the alleyways. They're a great partner, and they're more than willing to go out and put out additional lighting on those poles where feasible. There is a small monthly charge with each of those lights just for awareness. And we've looked at the First Street parking lot in particular over the last couple years. And one of the challenges with that parking lot are the number of trees in that parking lot, which does block some of the lighting. So there are some challenges there. I think, and it's completely the council's prerogative, but I think one or two factors that may play into the First Street parking lots in particular are the First Street streetscaping project and the plaza, which do have street lights and other lighting amenities incorporated in them. Granted, that's 12, 18, 24 months on the time horizon at some point. And so I just add that for additional context before moving something up on the 6 to 12-month timeline when we have a couple other projects in the works. But again, staff continually evaluates these parking lots, and we've trimmed the tree branches up, for example, just a few months ago to try and maximize the existing lighting that we have. And so it's not something lost on us already.
There could be surface mounted lighting as well that goes from ground up into the trees on the bottom side. So there's options.
Councilor Ring.
Thank you, Mayor. One more thing I really wanted to point out kind of goes along with the lighting and whatnot, but CO1 on page 28, the signage, I was happy to see that it was more of a short-term goal. It goes along with what Owen was talking about as far as that communications plan, and yourself too. I'm wondering, with it being a short-term goal, and city manager mentioned, the balancing resources and projects and things, I'd really like to see that happen sooner rather than later.
The lighting?
The signage.
Well, the signage. It seems to me that the signage would be a lot more effective if we had lighting first which would take away the argument from people that, okay, you want me to go park over in the parking lots and I don't feel safe there. And maybe if we could move the lighting up, with the signage. What do you think about that?
I think the only other thing I could add is, I can certainly speak with the facility staff myself about lighting at the First Street parking lots. And I guess I'll play this card that I've played a couple times now, that the council has identified quite a few things in our council goal plan and action plan for the next 12 to 18 months or so. And so I just want to make sure that, if everything's a priority, kind of nothing is, and just kind of flag that for council. Coming from this meeting, I can certainly work with the facility staff and the PUD to see what we can do. We could also, leave the strategies where they are in the report, knowing that we have some pretty significant construction projects coming down the pipeline, and manage that workload for staff over this year.
Okay. So I'm hearing that we can go ahead and approve the plan and leave it to the staff to take care of the issues that have been raised.
Yeah. So keeping them where they're at on this list, we are going to make the one modification to page 17 to add a little bit of language. Obtain or foster agreements from and between downtown businesses, and then the rest of the sentence remains the same. Everything else, we can just do on our end.
Okay.
And just another piece of context there, I think I want to acknowledge that there certainly could be trigger points to take action more expeditiously. If a particular project breaks ground or is completed and we start to see see an increase in parking demand, we could certainly expedite a particular strategy. But barring one of those triggers, the plan and timeline and prioritization ranking holds pretty true.
Okay. Do we have to adopt the plan as amended?
Yeah.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the parking plan as amended?
Make a motion to approve the parking strategy plan as amended.
I'll second that.
Been moved by Councilor Ring and seconded by Councilor Richardson to approve the downtown parking management strategy action plan as amended. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Or raise your hand. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you, Owen, for the help.
Yeah.
Thank you, Owen.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Item 11A, consideration of a proposal to acquire a computer-aided dispatch and police records management system in partnership with Wasco County.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the council. I'm Tom Worthy. I'm the Chief of Police for City of the Dalles. I brought with me tonight Krista Silver, a key partner for ours in this CAD RMS acquisition project. I promised her that I would do the lion's share of the talking, so she's here to answer questions at the end. If you recall, in June of 2021, that was shortly after I came to work at the City of the Dalles, we had identified a weakness within the department, which is our antiquated software, our core software of CAD and RMS. CAD, of course, means computer-aided dispatch, and RMS means police records management system. Our software is very antiquated and old. We are essentially playing Pac-Man, and all the other agencies are playing Call of Duty. It's about that bad, and you can see it in the graphics. CAD is a system that dispatchers use to take calls for service, assign resources to emergencies and routine calls, and to communicate with officers in the field. And the CAD system allows officers in the field to receive those CAD calls, information about situational awareness to calls that they're attending to while they're doing their duties within the community. Our police records management system, or any police records management system, is a system that officers use to write police reports and forward them to the district attorney, collect information such as the identity of suspects, stolen property, witnesses, victims, vehicles, evidence, and more. These systems are central to the work that all police and sheriff's deputies do. We use them all day, every day, throughout the day, and both systems are tightly intertwined, very tightly intertwined. Information that is originated within CAD is reused within records management, and we use that to write our police reports, and it reduces and eliminates redundant entry of information in those reports. Pardon me. The systems that are currently in place are, as I mentioned, extremely antiquated and dated. If we recycle these systems and upgrade them to current status, we can anticipate to engage in evidence-based policing, fair and objective policing, and bias-free policing through analysis and checking our records and making sure that we're operating correctly and at the highest level. If you recall, this issue was brought to the City Council in November of 2022, and it was presented as a departmental weakness, and rectifying this deficiency is a top priority of the Dalles Police Department. And work has been ongoing with our partners in this area since, as I mentioned, June of 2021. More recently, the issue was addressed at the City Council goal setting session, as you recall, in November of 2024, and it resulted in a City Council goal of 1.3 in the livability section, which says to deploy CAD RMS system and associated infrastructure in partnership with Wasco County and the Mid-Columbia Fire and Rescue. MCFR is a third partner in this project. So WCSO and TDPD have jointly released a request for proposal pursuant to county procurement requirements. And WCSO intends to be the contract holder, and we will license through them for the new system. We will have, pardon me. TDPD will reimburse Wasco County for the actual costs pursuant to the 911 services agreement, which was recently rewritten. The RFP was successful in identifying a presumptive preferred vendor, but we are still not under contract, so we're not saying their name here. Ideally, the preferred provider provides both systems since they're so tightly integrated. And fortunately for us, and very unusually, the one that we selected was the lowest cost vendor of the vendors that proposed for us. So that's ideal. Budget implications for this, for the City Council. This CAD RMS project will have significant budget implications for the fiscal year 25-26. That's for the project phase as well as acquisition of infrastructure and software. The first year of the project will have added costs for project management, data conversion, licensing, interface development, and other costs that will be within the scope of the project. No contract has been signed, as I mentioned before, and until the contract is signed, costs are not final, and even then costs can change and modify throughout the life cycle of the project. So pre-warning on that. Dispatch operations and costs are divided between Wasco County, the Dalles Police Department, and Mid-Columbia Fire and Rescue. And we pay our dispatch provider, Wasco County, based on calls for service. And in the last analysis, which is a 3-year rolling average, TDPD pays 61.6% of the operational costs for the dispatch center. Wasco County, 26.3%, and Mid-Columbia Fire and Rescue, 12.1%. Mid-Columbia Fire and Rescue is not a user of the police records management system. They just don't write police reports. And so they'll be excluded from those costs in this project. And the cost of the RMS will be split equally between the Dalles Police Department and Wasco County. And Mid-Columbia Fire and Rescue will contribute to the CAD portion of this project. Wasco County has also expended funds already on project support and management with a vendor called AdCom. They're professional project support for projects just like this. Former dispatchers, dispatch supervisors, and the like, as well as project managers. And they help us in acquiring and writing the RFP, as well as managing the contract all the way up through implementation. So there'll be an expense for that, and that's money well spent because a core competency of police is not project management. I'm not a project manager, I'm a police officer, and so they'll assist us with those technical issues. Data conversion is a process in bringing forward existing records that we have in our current systems into the new system so that that information is not lost and is reusable later in the future and help us solve old crimes if we need to and use the information that we already have. Wasco County Information Technology Services Division, I guess, is that right? They've agreed to manage this transition for us at a much less of an expense than it would cost through a vendor. That's technical work and it's difficult and it's relatively risky, but Wasco County can do it in-house, and we've agreed to, in principle, for them to manage this conversion for us. And those final costs haven't been established yet, and they're working on it. Wasco County continuously budgets money into the equipment fund at the 911 center, and that money will support this project going forward. These funds will contribute to the CAD and RMS project initiation and support the project as it gets started and the budgets are finalized and costs become more finalized and definite. The equipment fund contribution for the CAD RMS project will be $385,000 to start the project. The overall cost for the first year of the CAD RMS project for the City of the Dalles Police Department for the vendor, the primary vendor software, $184,999. AdCom project support of $25,000. CAD RMS project change order, which is likely to occur, has been budgeted at $20,000. And data migration, which is again the work that the county will do for us, at $10,000 for a total cost of $239,999. Our 911 services agreement for the forthcoming year will be $428,867. And that's outside of the software, the project. That is for the dispatchers, the supervisor, the people that answer the phone, take the calls, run our queries, et cetera. So this is a large project. It's probably the largest project that the Dalles Police Department's undertaken in the last 25 years or so. And these things can change. The cost can change, the timeline can change, and we've taken steps to mitigate these risks from the very beginning. We've worked tightly with our partners. We've engaged with legal support as well as information technology support in order to reduce that risk at every step possible. We think that we could possibly get into contract within a month or so. Once we do that, this will be the primary focus of the police department, well, aside from crime, for the next probably 12 to 18 months. So that timeline will be determined by the project plan and schedule as we go forward with our vendor and become to know more about what this project looks like. It is going to be significant work. It is risky work. It can go wrong. Other agencies have failed in this endeavor in the past. And so I say again, we're doing everything we can to manage risk, mitigate it, work together, and get this thing just right. So I'm happy to take any questions, or Krista can correct everything I said wrong.
Is there any corrections you want to make, Kristen, before we?
We are definitely working as a team, which is very, very helpful. The Dalles Police Department and Wasco County is working on this together, which is, we haven't done a lot in the past, which is going to be very helpful because it's going to take us working as a team to make sure the records are right and that we do this right from the start. So it's going to be very helpful.
Thank you. Any questions for the two?
So, Mr. Mayor, if I just may make a brief comment, there's been a lot of work and diligence done, as the two individuals have explained to us here. And the culmination of that work is going to be coming up soon. And we're going to be looking for your input and action here to continue to support our partners and move the project forward. And so, again, the point this evening was to kind of give this overview, to give this update, get any questions that you may have, bring back answers if we don't have them tonight, and to try and make that process as smooth as possible going forward.
Councilor Richardson, did you have, I saw you about to raise your hand, or did I
think I had a quizzical look on my face.
That's just as good.
All right. Thank you for your work on this. Thanks for being candid. Thanks for your candor. I appreciate, Chief, your focus on raising standards, for example, the certification project at the police department. My question is my math right that when you say significant costs, it's maybe something on the order of $1.1 million for the next fiscal year?
Including the 911 equipment fund, it's.
I just added up all the dollars and rounded them off. Yeah. All right.
That's also just a quick note. That's also including our standing services agreement with the county. So that's not all software. It's not all CAD RMS. That's also the people on the other end of the radio.
How are they doing for you?
They're fantastic. We have a great relationship. They're running a great ship up there, and we're happy and lucky to have them.
Mayor Mays?
Councilor
You said something about failure and that you were doing things to avoid the failure. What are some of the things that other police agencies are having?
So things that can ruin a project like this are anytime you violate one leg of what's called the project management triple constraint, which would be scope, schedule, and budget. We could radically overspend this. We could blow our schedule and take 2 years to do a 1-year project, or we could miss our scope, meaning that we get live with CAD, never succeed with RMS, something along those lines, or we don't achieve the original purposes of the project. So that AdCom contract that's mentioned in there, they're professional project managers. They will help us advocate for us with our vendor. The vendor will also assign a project manager to this project when it's in contract, and ensure that we get out of the project what we originally intended to get out of the project at the time and the cost that we wanted to do it.
So following up on that, if you mentioned the word failure, that's kind of a scary term.
Picked up on
There's a
that.
difference between massive delays, overspending, blowing the budget, and blowing the whole project. I mean, is that what's happened in other cities? They
That
have
has
to just
happened.
abandon everything and
That has happened. That can happen. Projects where they've entered into a project phase, put a bunch of effort and work into trying to get live in a new system and then never do and just stay where they are. That would be an example of a failure. There was a notable CAD RMS consortium in the metro area that just fell apart after a year, and that was supposed to be a generational project. Those things can happen. It's risky, but when you go into these with your eyes open and you apply proper project management principles, effort, and you're willing to change to the system as we are, that's when you can see that successful spot in the middle.
Might, if I may ask the chief to comment on the alternative, which is to continue with our existing system, which is not really
option.
feasible.
Yeah. Noted that this week, our CAD system has had to reboot several times unannounced. And that's unscheduled downtime. And that seems to me to be becoming more frequent. And we do, of course, need to stay current. Computers get better, they change, they morph, and they need to be supported. And so getting towards a more modern system helps us stay current and fresh, and allows us to do, like I mentioned, the fair, unbiased, evidence-based policing that we want to do here in the city, and continue to strive for those lofty goals of excellence that we've set for the department. And this is one of those tools that can help us, or two of those tools really, that can really help us do that.
And currently, we're not even running on the same system. He's currently on one RMS. We're currently on a separate RMS. Our systems do not talk. And so if there was a crime committed, our systems aren't talking to each other. And
Isn't
so
that a problem?
that is a problem. 'Cause
Huge problem.
a system, somebody could commit a crime in the city, somebody could commit a crime in the county, and our systems aren't talking to each other. So if we're all on the same system, that could really help. That could make a big difference.
Councilor Ring.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Quick question. I'm not sure if this is really for Chief Worthy or our city manager or maybe our IT director, but is there what sort of ties, if any, exist into the existing city's IT infrastructure? Is there anything that is attached at the hip that also needs to be upgraded or maintained or something outside of just the CAD RMS? Is there a relationship there?
I mean, I'd let the IT director.
We
speak
had
to
our,
that.
David Collins is in the audience for just such a question.
Thank you.
Call him on the spot.
Restate that question one more time.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's a relationship between the CAD RMS system that's going to be developed and some of the city's IT infrastructure that I know we already know that you're working on a plan to enhance.
Yeah. So with the CAD RMS system, this one's going to be outside of our network. Obviously, Wasco County is hosting this. So other pieces that we will need to obviously keep up and secure with FEJIS requirements, keeping up our devices that are going to be into the infrastructure. But I don't think there's anything.
Okay, thanks.
So the link is with, it has fiber on this system? Is that what serves?
I'd rather not go into detail in this open forum with those specifics
All right.
on that.
It's all CJIS.
But I saw the nod, so I
It's all CJIS protected.
got it. All right, that's what's,
We're just gonna go that way. It's all CJIS protected, okay?
all right.
I had a couple of questions. As I understand this, there's 4 categories of expense here. You got the CAD, which is based on the number of calls. You've got the record management system, which is a 50-50 split. You've got data conversion. Now, I take it the fire district is not contributing in that, right?
That's right.
So that's just the county and the city. And then the equipment purchase, which is $385,000. Is the fire district contributing to the equipment purchase?
They have all along through their agreement to the 911 center. That's money that's been
came out of the
budgeted
budget.
there.
What?
It came out of my budget. I already had the money in my budget for that. I already had the money
Yeah,
in my
right,
budget for
but
that.
Shouldn't the users of the system be contributing?
And they are.
Yeah,
Yes,
they
sir.
are. Okay, that's great. And then on page 3 at the top, the overall cost for the first year is $240,000. That's in addition to the 4 other categories that I mentioned, the CAD, the RMS, the,
A primary vendor contract is CAD RMS. So that $185,000 right there is the new software contract.
for the RMS.
Yep. And where it says dispatch services, think of that as dispatchers and call takers at the center there now. That's a service that we already have.
Okay. Where is AdCom from? Where are they from?
They're nationwide. They have local folks here, Tri-Cities, and then I think Edmonton, Washington, or something like that are assigned to the project.
Okay. And I think Councilor Richardson alluded to this, but I want to make sure is this part of the, your goal when you got here was to get the department certified.
Mhm.
So this is all part of the certification.
We've already become accredited, so we're in good standing with the Northwest Accreditation Alliance. And so this will help us in the future to remain accredited and police better. But we have already achieved that certification, if you will.
Great. Last paragraph of your memo, it talks about outside influences can influence outcomes and timelines. Councilor McLaughlin was asking about failure. Is that the same answer to that question as answering what sort of outside influences could cause problems? And
No, I'd draw a
timeline
distinction
issues?
on that. An outside influence that could delay or disrupt the project might be state of Oregon law enforcement data systems. We have to have an interface into that so we can run these systems. They're heavily dependent on the NCIC files, wanted person vehicle files. And so if they said, hey, we've had a problem or we lost an employee and we can't schedule you for 2 years, that could be an influence that could delay our project, as an example, among other things.
When do you think you will know when the data conversion is really kind of up in the, as far as the cost goes?
I think we're fairly accurate on that estimate. It's not going to go much higher than that. And that's a county cost for their staff time to work on our system.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Councilor McLaughlin?
Go ahead, Ben.
Councilor Ring?
Thank you. Is there a place in here? This is kind of high level in the document. Is there more scope or a later cost for training of officers and whatnot? I imagine Wasco County probably already is familiar with the newer system.
Yeah, end user training is accounted for in the project plan. And once that's baseline, then we'll know exactly when that is at least initially intended to happen. But we budgeted that. It's in the scope.
Councilor McLaughlin?
When a person makes a 911 call, it comes in, there are 2 simultaneous, but that increases the chance of something going wrong with communication, correct? Currently. And by making this improvement, that will help improve efficiency.
Mhm. Yeah, because our system now is our system we have right now, because it is so old and doesn't do all the things it should do.
Right.
The dispatchers have to work harder to get things done. With the new system, because there's going to be so many more things that it can do for us, our dispatchers are going to be able to do things faster, quicker, get things and be able to handle things so much better that we'll be able to take the calls easier and move through the calls and help people faster, get them help faster. It'll be better for the citizens, help better for our officers.
Any other questions?
Comments?
Any other comments?
It makes sense to make these improvements. The computer-aided dispatch and the reporting system, it increases the chances of collection of data and storage and retrieval for supporting court cases, prosecution. I think it adds to the safety. All of these things are the safety and health of our community. And this fits that requirement in my mind. The only thing that I haven't heard and that we have talked about, Chief Worthy and I, is modernizing and making sure that we have a centralized video monitoring capability in one location. So the people would have a chance, if they see something on the screen happening, that would improve what they could connect with officers. So that would be one component that I would like to see considered adding to, if not at this time, sometime in the future, so we could centralize what we're doing with video monitoring. That's it.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? There's no action required or asked for. So this is just a discussion item. So I'm sure you'll be back to give us an update in the next 5 years.
Sure. And thank you for keeping us safe.
Thank you. Yeah.
Please do
Tough
that.
job. Okay. The City Council of the City of the Dalles will now meet in executive session pursuant to ORS 192-660-2D, which allows the council to meet in executive session to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the City Council to carry on labor negotiations, and ORS 192-660-2H, which allows the council to meet in executive session to consult with counsel concerning the legal rights and duties of the city with regard to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed. Consistent with ORS 192-660-4, representatives of the news media are not allowed to attend the portion of tonight's executive meeting concerning labor negotiations and will be asked to leave the room. No decision may be made in executive session. At the end of the executive session, we will return to open session and welcome the audience back. We expect to return in approximately 10 minutes. 15 minutes.
One.